Sato ma Satgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. Um, so let's start off from where we left in the last class. Uh, did you guys have any thought over what we discussed last time? Any questions? Or I have planned for something today. We can start with that then, unless you have any questions. Let me start sharing my screen. Okay. So just confirm once you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, so the advantage I have of coming back to India is I have pulled out a lot of old charts which I have at home, and charts of relatives, charts of friends, charts of people who have consulted me in the past. So this is one very interesting chart which I've always enjoyed looking at. So I think this is we will discuss this today, and it is very important to discuss this chart because you'll see how important it is to assess a chart thoroughly. There are a lot of interesting points here in this chart, so I want to really start discussing this one. And I know this native very well, so I know the life of this person very well. He's in his 70s now, and really interesting chart. Whenever I look at it, I always find something interesting about this. So let's start. So what is the ascendant of this native?
Leo?
Yes, that's a good start. Ascendant is Leo, right?
Yes.
And where is Sun placed? Where is the Sun is the Lord of Leo, right? And where is the Lord of Leo placed?
In the
It's
third house?
it's in the placed in the third house. Now, do you remember exaltations and debilitations, which we had spoken about?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So where is Sun exalted? And where is Sun debilitated? So Sun is always exalted in Aries, and Sun is debilitated in Libra.
Libra. Yeah.
Okay. And what about Jupiter? Jupiter is exalted in Cancer,
Cancer.
and Jupiter is debilitated in Capricorn.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
very important concept. So, what makes this chart very interesting is that two major planets are actually debilitated, right? And when an astrologer actually looks at this chart, the first impression would be, oh, there's something wrong with this particular native. Even more surprising, I'll show you the strengths. Okay, so the good thing with having a computer software is that even if we don't know exaltation and debilitations, the computer does a very good job of doing all the calculations for you. So what is
Yes.
very interesting, see, sun is just 82%, right? Which means it is really below even the regular normal strength. So if it says 100% Shadpala, means that is average strength. So it's even below 100%, that is the Lagna Lord. And Jupiter, if you see, it's really weak, very weak Jupiter. Yeah, it's only
Yeah.
58, correct?
Right.
What is surprising about this native, if I just go ahead and talk more about this native is highly educated. He did his IIT. Hmm? And Jupiter is,
Okay.
is supposed to be Lord of Wisdom and everything, but the native is actually an IITian. And the native was also CEO of a company. Yeah, not
Right.
exactly CEO, but he was in a very good post in a company. And also, what is interesting about this native is uh, you can see the debilitation. So I want to discuss more about how to interpret this chart. Yeah. Anyways,
Can I
so if
ask you
you
a quick question?
yes, sure.
So when we say exaltation, that is,
Hmm.
in other words, like I have read and maybe heard about it. It's
Yes,
Uchka and Nichka. Is that what they are? These two are?
that's correct. That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay, got it then. Great.
So exaltation means this the sign where the planet is feels most comfortable
More
and
favorable.
comfortable, and it gains strength.
Strength. Okay.
Debilitation means it becomes weak in that particular place.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, so now very important concept. We've discussed about three concepts. We've discussed about affliction and placement of the planet. Second, we spoke about exaltation, debilitation, right? So if I have to ask you, what is the difference between exaltation, debilitation, and affliction to a planet and placement to a planet? So there are three things: placement, affliction, strength, that is exaltation, debilitation. What is the difference between three? Like, I'll tell you, 90% of the astrologists won't get this right. 90% won't get this right. But I mean, from whatever hundreds and hundreds of horoscopes I have seen, this is a continuous pattern which I have seen, right? So it is very, so this is how I make the distinction between these three: strength of the planet, second is affliction to a planet, and third is placement. How do you think the results will manifest in each of these three cases? Any ideas? What are the difference in the way it will manifest results?
Well, I think all three are related.
It is kind of related, but
Right.
okay. Let's say that if a person has got favorable position, but the planet is a debilitation, is that possible? Number one. Number two is if the planet is, say, exalted, but if it is afflicted, is that possible? But it is possible, right? So
Yes.
uh, you can have a planet which is exalted, but it is conjunct a malefic. Malefic. When it is conjunct in a malefic, means we say that it is debilitated, right? Because it is conjunct some other planet, right? So it is basically changing the property of the planet because there is a malefic planet. Yeah? So
Right.
so that is the key difference I want to understand. I want you to understand that when we say that a planet is exalted or debilitated or weak in strength, what I have observed is does not mean that it won't give you results, right? It will give you
Right.
results, but uh, it won't be capable to give results in abundance. That is one. Uh, Second is it can cause health issues. Hmm. So key thing to
Right.
so affliction will cause more of issues where there are sudden incidences in the life, or there is a it might change the nature of a person. But exaltation, debilitation can alter the nature of the person. Like for example, like for example, let's take up Mars. If Mars is weak, what happens to the person? He can become a bit more fearful. If Mars is very strong, it can make the person very aggressive, right? So now let's see what has happened in this chart. How will you rate the position of Mars? What do you think about Mars here in this horoscope? Obviously, if you see the Shadbala strength, you can see that Mars is one of the strongest planet, right? Mars and Saturn, both are the strongest planet, correct?
Right. Right. Right.
And where is Mars positioned? It's in the first house. And one more thing, if you notice, Mars, is it a benefic or malefic? We know that very well. We studied. So, what is Mars in this horoscope? Mars rules fourth house and the ninth house. Yes. So, if
Yes.
Mars rules the fourth house and the ninth house, it becomes a yoga karaka. Why it becomes a yoga karaka? Because fourth house makes it a benefic, and ninth house is the most auspicious house. So,
Right.
because it rules a Kendra, number one, it rules a Kendra, it rules a trine, and it is placed in the Kendra house, which makes Mars really powerful. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so can you imagine? So Mars is powerful. What about Saturn? Saturn rules sixth and seventh. You can see one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So Saturn rules sixth and seventh, and Saturn is positioned in the Kendra. So again, Saturn is a benefic because of the Kendra rule. Seventh house is a Kendra, and if the malefic rules a Kendra, it becomes a benefic, and a benefic is positioned. So you've got Mars and Saturn. Both are benefics placed in the ascendant. What happens in this case now? You have two benefics in the house of the Lagna, in your first house, which is the Tanubhava. So you can see how it would affect the nature of the individual. What do you think? How will be the nature of this person? See, it's a very interesting chart. You see, Sun is debilitated, but Mars and Saturn both are very strong, and both are in the first house, in the house of Sun. It makes the native a very interesting person, right? What does Mars give you? Mars give you the right amount of aggression, right? It can make you a leader, right? Mars makes you a leader. What does
Right.
Saturn give you? Saturn gives you perfection. Saturn is like a perfectionist. It will like make you work really hard, right? And plus, if
Yes.
Saturn rules the sixth house itself is for hard work, and how much effort you put in, and those kind of things. So sixth house is for hard work. So Saturn and Mars, both in the first house, both most powerful planets in the horoscope, makes the individual very radiant and a very influential person. Which that person is? He's a very influential person. So you can see how, in spite of Sun being debilitated, how some the other planets can really compensate that same kind of a feature. Correct. And you can see again Jupiter. Jupiter is again weak in the sixth house. So I know the native very well, so I can tell you the native has got a lot of problem with his eyesight. Why? Because you know what is sun for, right? One is one of the karaka of the sun. Sun means eyes, right? Uh, Correct. Light. Sun means light. The
Light.
native has got a lot of problem with his eyes. In fact, now there is a possibility that the person can even go blind. That kind of possibility. What about Jupiter? The person is always diabetic, and always went through various kind of ailments. Always had a lot of other kind of diseases. So, but in spite of having the diseases, in spite of having eye issues, the native is still surviving and going strong in the 70s. Why? Because you've got the Martian aggression. You've got Saturn and Mars guarding the first house of health and the nature and everything. How will be the nature of this person? Oh, this native can be really, really fiery. Why? Because you've got Mars, the planet which everybody fears, just the red blood fear of Mars, which makes him a very capable leader. Like, if the person enters an office place, right, all the employees will be really shit scared of this person entering in. That kind of radiance the person has got, which is something which you would associate with Sun, right? But Sun being debilitated, what is the common mistake an astrologer will do? You see, Arya, our sun is so debilitated. This native will be very, he will be very self-conscious and stuff. But what I believe is that Mars and Saturn, two powerful planets being in the ascendant, this is something very akin to what you heard of about Nietzsche Bhanga Yoga, right? They call this concept called as Nietzsche Bhanga Yoga, where like even if the planet is debilitated, when two powerful planets come together, they can change the whole course of that particular horoscope. That's why I wanted to show you this horoscope. That whenever you look at the horoscope, you have to look at it very subtly. You have to look at every part. You have to literally tear the horoscope apart and look at each individual thing about the horoscope. One more very
Correct.
interesting part. Where is Moon situated? Moon is in his own house in Cancer, correct?
In that. Yes.
So perfect position for the moon. What does moon stand for? Moon stands for mind, right? So the mind is in good state. The position of the mind is good. But what does 12th house stand for?
Savings.
12th house is mainly stands for detachment. Some people say losses, but you can say detachment is a better word, right? Especially when you relate it to the mind, it is always detachment. Yeah. One more thing to note that Moon being such an important planet, uh, if there is a benefic with Moon, it makes the horoscope very strong. If there is a benefic behind or forward moon, it makes the horoscope very strong. If you see this particular chart, you have moon and you've got two benefics situated in the immediate next house from moon, right? It makes it a very powerful combination. You got it right. How Mars and Saturn are in the second house from Moon. So if you see from Moon, the second house from Moon is Mars and Saturn, and second house generally stands for prosperity. So the prosperity of the mind. If you look at it from that way, you've got Moon and Saturn waiting there, two benefits to grace that particular house. So that's how you would read it. Okay, now let's look at some more interesting points that we discussed last week. Uh, okay, so just to give you a bit more idea of the amount of depth I want you to think. So whenever we have this session, right, what you have to do is that you have to really contemplate on whatever we have discussed in the class. Like for example, I give you, if I say that the kendras are important, uh, what how will you break up that rule? How will you break up kendras, or how will you start visualizing the trikona houses? Yeah, I'll give you an example. So the whole zodiac is 360 degrees, correct? Kendra means you're dividing it into four parts. So what are the four parts? From where will the which are the start of those four parts? 0 degrees is the first part, which is the first house. Where will the where will the first quarter end?
90.
120, right? 30, 60, 90, 20.
Oh, yeah,
So
120. Sorry.
120, sorry, that will actually you're right.
No,
90, 90,
98,
correct. Yeah,
180.
90. So 90 is where you will your first quarter ends, correct, and the second quarter starts. So the where the second quarter starts, that is your fourth house, correct, and
Yes.
which is the second quadrant. So the first quadrant starts from 0, your second quadrant starts from 90, your third quadrant starts from 180, and your fourth quadrant starts from 270. So that's how you have divided those four parts. Now if you explore more into these quadrants, they are four spheres of your life in a way, right? So if you see if you analyze these four spheres again, the first sphere uh, has got more about your childhood and your upbringing and stuff, right? If you see, because of the first house is obviously related to childhood. Second house is to do with prosperity, but the prosperity starts more from, your childhood and you not having too much control on influencing your childhood. The third house is the house of desires, as we discussed, desires, and the house of action, house of communication. So, as a kid or in your growing stages, how you communicate, what are the desires that you express, while growing up. So, those are the things that you discuss in that. Those are the matters concerned with the third house. So that is your starting phase. Then you get into the second quarter. What is the second quarter? It starts again with the family, and then it starts with the fifth house, which is higher education. So now you've grown up. You're more in your say moving into your adulthood. So it concerns more your mm, adulthood. Actually, fifth house is also a house for romance and stuff. So if somebody says, I have a girlfriend. Will I get married? So you'll have to look at the fifth. You'll have to look at the seventh house. I'm just giving you clues. So that is fifth house. And what is the sixth house for? Sixth house is for hard work. It is for the roadblocks. And when do you expect most of the roadblocks or most of the hard work which you would have to put in? It is in your initial years, right? When your 20s and 30s is when you will experience most of the roadblocks, and your mind is going crazy, and you have to put in a lot of work so that you can build your career and all. It all happens in the sixth house. So sixth house, I would say, plays a very big role in your development and the free will which you exert. So the two main houses where you can exert your free will in your childhood is the third house and sixth house. Why? Third house is your desires, like desire to become a sports person. I desire to be a software engineer. I desire to be a businessman. So a lot of this desires you can look it up from the third house, right? And because that whatever you desire, that is going to have a very big bearing on your future course of your life. Your unhappiness, happiness, at the end of the day, it's all an illusion, right? It's an illusion based on your desires. If you have less desires, obviously your unhappiness quotient will also vary much. But if you're like you have really big dreams and stuff, you similarly, you have big things to match up in life as well. Okay, so that is your third house, and then the amount of effort which you put in is your sixth house. Then you come to the third quarter. Obviously, your childhood is done, your middle age kind of is done. Then you come to the family part, right? So seventh starts with your family, which is your partner. Like fifth, I said, is more for romance, whereas seventh is where you actually get married, and you see how your life is with your partner and everything. Uh, that said, actually, fifth house is also a house of creation, right? And what is the creation aspect in the fifth house? It is the I mean, if you want to look at children, you would actually look at the fifth house. How fertile the fifth house is, and the fifth house is also for children and happiness. That's why we see that fifth house is the most auspicious house. Fifth and ninth, both are very auspicious house. So we've covered the seventh house, which is more for partnership. Then you come to the eighth house. What is the difference between the sixth and the eighth house? Eighth house is concerns longevity, it concerns transformation, and it concerns inner desires and stuff, right? So which is a more malefic house? Is sixth more malefic or eighth more malefic? What do you think? What is more malefic, sixth or eighth?
Probably eighth.
Eighth is more malefic, you're right. And we know why eighth is more malefic, because eighth house, we don't have too much control over the eighth house, because eighth house is kind of a house of karma, in the sense, the sudden changes which we witness in our life, like say COVID-19 is a complete house of transformation, right? Who would have expected that everything will come and our lives will get changed and everything? So it's something like COVID-19, which is like more an eighth house attribute, because suddenly everything changed in my life. My life is upside down. So like an unfortunate death in the family, or let's say a very hard lesson which you learned in life. All those things you would actually look at eighth house. So you should always look at eighth house very carefully. If a native is saying that I have a lot of pain in the life, you look at the sixth house. But if sixth house is malefic, there are tendencies of the sixth house being malefic. What you would say is that maybe the native is not putting it enough effort, or his brain is a bit wonky, or he needs a bit of more self help, or he's got into bad company. That is more sixth house related. But eighth house is genuinely something is going wrong in the person's life, which over which he does not have too much control. That is mostly eighth house. So eighth house has to be looked more carefully, because that is more a house of that is more a house of karma. Ninth house is house of spirituality, house of deeper learning or deeper knowledge. So see, you have three houses for knowledge. Third house is for your primary education, like schooling and everything, which is and your upbringing is third house. Fifth house is again for your higher education. Ninth house is more education to do with spirituality, occult. So if you want to look at, say, whether your tendency, whether you'll become a good astrologer and stuff, ninth house has to be strong somewhere. You need to have a lot of energy in your ninth house. So that is the energy of the ninth house. Then your third quarter ends there. Then comes your fourth quarter. Your fourth quarter is basically 10, 11, 12. What is 10, 11, 12? 10 starts again with the house of karma, which is, your doing. Again, it's completely in your hand. Your profession is in your hand. And what is related to the 10th house? There is a lot of relation with the 6th, 10th, and 11th. I'll tell you how. Huh? Sixth house is effort and hard work. 10th house is how perfectly you do that hard. You actually manifest it in the public space, right? Like going to work, and how good you will be at work, how lucky you will get at work, your job, occupation. If you want to suggest somebody, should I get into business or should I get into service? What are the things you would likely to look up? I mean, let's take the example. I'll just finish the 10th, 11th, and 12th house, and then we'll look at that question really. 11th house is for income, gains, uh, mm, desire. See, again, 11th house, though, a lot of people say that it's a good house, but it's more a house of how do you manifest your success? Like, how do you deal with your success, right? Because we know that you put in hard work, which is six. You know you're successful in your job and you earned a lot of money. So because 11th house signifies wealth, right, which you gain through income. Second also signifies wealth in a way, but that is more wealth which you have accumulated over time, whereas 11 is the wealth which is earned out of your current work or duty or profession. So if you want to see investment gains, you'll probably look at a second house and a bit of 11th house and 12th house. But if you want to look at would I be in a more will I be in a career where I'll be earning a lot of money, then you'll have to look more in the 10th and 11th and also a bit of 12th. Now, why 12th house? Because 12th house is actually the opposite of 11th house. So if 11th house is the house of gains and fortune and income and other things, 12th house is for the losses, detachment, going abroad. See, 12th house also, I don't think many astrologers actually understand the 12th house well. Why I say that, a lot of people they say that, oh, there is a planet in the 12th house, which means you'll have a loss, right? But you can't interpret it as a loss. It can also be that you go and settle abroad, right? Because again, because if you go abroad, what happens? You're detaching yourself from your place, right? So that is also one thing. We have to very closely observe these subtle things, have to be very closely watched. And one more thing, one more basic mistake which astrologers tend to do is that they look at a horoscope from the current perspective, right? Like for example, let's say that a native comes today and let's say he's 25 years of age. When I advise him, I can't advise him just looking at his horoscope that he is 25. I have to take his whole lifespan, right? I have to take from 0 to 70, 80 lifespan. I have to advise, right? I can't just say, everything in the horoscope does not have to make sense now to him. Maybe the same stuff which I'm saying now might make sense after 30, 40 years. So, how do you make that distinction? Which is applicable now and which is applicable later? That is also a lot of astrologers struggle with that aspect, and we will discuss that as we go forward. And we discover more on timing and stuff, and how we can actually judge the maturity of an individual. See, this is one thing I feel very less research has been done in astrology. And we know that there have been great astrologers like, we have B.V. Raman, and we have the Krishnamurti, and so many, modern age astrologers are there. But I still feel that the amount of traction that yoga or maybe, some other form, Ayurveda have got, astrology comparatively has got very less. Maybe it is to do with funding, or it is to do with uh, you know uh, uh, the way the people thought about astrology to be. I don't think enough research has been done on the progress of an individual as he goes along in a chart. Like for example, if you take my horoscope, when I look at it when I was 25 years and when I look at it now at 40 years, it makes completely different sense. Like at 25, maybe I would have been the same person looking at my chart and worrying about how things are going to manifest, whereas now when I look at the same chart, I'm like, what? I mean, these are things which had to happen, and I have a totally different pair of eyes when I look at it now. And that's the things which I was worried, which happened in the last 10 or 15 years. When I look at it now, I look at it in a very different way. I mean, the same weaknesses which I saw when I was, say, 10 years or 20 years, I don't see them as weakness now. Rather, I see them as strength. And they're the same planets which are probably, giving me that weakness now are giving me the strength. So why? Because those same energies have matured over time, right? So how do you judge that? And that is very difficult. Very difficult, and a lot of astrologers don't believe that is even possible. But I am someone who believes in free will, and I have seen people change over time. So how do you explain change over time in a chart? Not a very difficult thing, and that's why I always differ from. That's why I don't pick up any book, and that's why I have not recommended you to read any book. If you start reading any book of even say the great astrologers like B.V. Raman, and you just say, if you open Leo ascendant, Mars in the first house, you will give up after reading 2 pages of that book, because it will say this native will suffer from this, he will have a stroke at this age, this that. So the predictions are very dire, and it will either scare you off and you'll run away far from astrology, or it might just not make sense. You'll say, I can't trust all these things. So that's why I say that very less research has been done in this subject. But the thing is, I have gone through these phases where I have contemplated, thought about this. But once you look at once you've looked at only say 10 or 20 charts, then it is very difficult for you to make a judgment. But uh, once you've got access to say 1,000 charts, and you know those 1,000 individuals personally, then within your mind you say that, what, I can start seeing a pattern emerge. Like I mentioned before, debilitation and exaltation strength does not really mean that the individual will have a bad life. It just means health issues, right? So weakness means the energy is weak in the particular body, so it might affect the organ. Whereas affliction is will affect the individual in a more different way. Like affliction will change the personality. Like if let's say malefic, Mars is malefic and it's conjunct moon, which is for the mind, then the it can even make that person an evil person, because Mars is aggression, and aggressive negative Mars conjunct moon can make the person very aggressive. He can do wrong things in life, right? But if Mars is weak, let's say Mars is debilitated, the effect will be different. It does not mean that the person becomes aggressive. It means that the person will become fearful. He won't have that courage, right? So you can see it's different. The affliction is different, and weakness is different. And same thing. So we spoke about conjunction. We spoke about this thing. And what if Mars is in inimical sign, like if it is in a sign of a non-friendly planet? How does that affect? That affects the nature again. Yeah, that affects the nature, and it starts affecting only those houses. Again, to very important, the maximum effect a planet will bestow is in the house where it is situated. Like for example, if in this horoscope you see Mars and Saturn is there in the Lagna, the maximum effect of Mars and Saturn you will see in the Lagna. If moon is in the 12th house, the maximum effect of moon you will see in the 12th house. And obviously, you will see the effect in the houses where it rules. Like, for example, you can see moon rules Cancer and moon is in the 12th house, which is like the best combination. So, the 12th house is completely governed and controlled by moon, and moon is healthy, right? It's in its own Mool Trikona sign. So, it is amazing, how that person's mind will function. Similarly, like Mars being in a friendly sign, because Mars and Sun are friendly, right? So Mars being a Yoga Karaka, the most auspicious planet in this particular chart, is in the first house, gives the individual the right kind of aggression to progress in life. So even the Sun is weak, Mars gives you the aggression. But how will you rule? But if see, there is a very interesting thing. Sun is conjunct with which planet? Sun is conjunct Moon, Mars, correct? Sorry, Mercury, right? Sun is conjunct Mercury, and it
Correct.
is conjunct in the third house. Now, what is third house? Third house is for desires and communication, right? So you have the desire and communication, the planet for desires, communication, Mercury, which is again speech, in with Sun in the third house of Sun, which mean and Mars in the first house. What you can say that the person will be quite blunt in his speech, very straightforward, very blunt in his speech. Why? Because you've got Sun, so which means whenever he speaks, he will speak, truly from his conscious, from his self-conscious. So very interesting chart. I mean, I can keep talking about this chart because I know this native very well, but it's not easy. like if I didn't know this particular native and I would have looked at this chart, right, I would have made a lot of mistakes. I would have probably said, this, I don't think this native will be healthy and stuff. But it just goes on to say how much the Martian energy can, make the person going strong and healthy. And in spite of the person being diabetic, the person having all kind of ailments, how the person has pulled through all those issues just because he's got a really strong Yoga Karaka Mars in its first house, and he's got a very nice Saturn governing the sixth and seventh house. So what I would suggest is the meeting time is running out for Zoom. Should we just log out and log back in? I think that will extend the time, right?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so what I will do is I won't stop the meeting. We will just, I'll just stop the recording. We'll log back and we'll log back in. So we get our 45 minutes back. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.